Hello and welcome back to another episode of Delusional Chaos, and this is the podcast where I dive into the weird but beautiful layers of life. And in today's episode I'll be discussing the early stages of dating. And if you like content just like this, then you can like, comment and subscribe. But let me just get into it. So the first topic for today's podcast on the early stages of dating is first dates. And I haven't really been on too many first dates, so I can't really say much on the topic, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about my first dates and just them in general. But I remember from my first dates just feeling so nervous and so excited at the same time, because you're just anticipating like what's going to be happening, and it's just so exciting but so nerve-wracking because you don't know who you're meeting and it's a little bit of stranger danger. Or if you have already met, it's the nervousness of what's gonna happen. Like, is this gonna ruin our friendship or relationship that we've already got? And yeah, it's obviously just very exciting because you're like, is this it? Is this the love of my life? But you're normally just before the first date just romanticizing in your head like this is going to be the most perfect time, or dreading everything and overthinking everything. And usually I switch between both before, but I like to, on a first date, kind of just get myself in the zone, do a little bit of self-care before, make sure I'm wearing an outfit I feel comfortable in and also one that I look good in. And I like to do my makeup. I definitely don't wear a lot of makeup anymore, but I try and make a little bit of an effort and sometimes try and push the boat out, because you have to give off the right impression. If this is the love of your life, here I am, do you know what I mean? So yeah, that is kind of like the beginning part of the dates. And some of my first dates have been awful, and you can check out previous podcasts or like other videos that I've done on dating and hear some of those stories. But I usually don't have the best first dates because it's really awkward. I hate small talk. I love having like a deep chat, and I love it when somebody's on that same wavelength. But usually for a first date it's obviously quite a lot, so it's just the kind of normal chat and you're seeing if you get along or they align with your values and if you want to see them again. But yeah, they can be scary, but they can also be really, really fun. And I think you definitely learn a lot when you're going on these first dates and dating in general. But onto the second topic of today is the crush era. And I'm just gonna read a little definition of what crush means. So, a brief but intense infatuation for someone, especially someone unattainable. And this is just kind of like the romanticization of somebody, and I just think a crush is the best feeling. You can be crushing on somebody, but they aren't necessarily like your crush. It's so technical nowadays, like there's just everything means something different and it's a lot to keep up with. But having a crush, especially like when you're in school and you're like, oh, like gonna go see my crush today, it can be very exciting, but the rejection is real when you realise that they are unattainable, and they're unattainable for a reason. So, not to put a negative spin on everything, but you know what I mean, like it's just how it is. And I am somebody that has gotten a lot better with this over time, but I definitely do struggle with really romanticizing somebody that I'm dating. As in, I will literally see you as kind of some god that has never done anything wrong, and that you're not human. Not that you're not a human being, but I just see it as like this pure thing until little cracks start to show, and then I'm like, oh, okay, the rose tinted glasses are gone. But yeah, I definitely do this thing where I romanticize somebody until they show me their true colours. And that kind of leads me on to something that I have learned about over the past couple of years, and thought I would share it in this as well. Because for the girlies that are delusional and obviously chaotic, and just anyone, like, this is something that I've learned about, relating to like crushes and romanticizing, is a thing called limerence. And limerence is a state of involuntary obsessive infatuation with another person, characterized by intrusive thoughts, intense euphoria, and a desperate longing for reconciliation. And I do mostly agree with that definition, but reconciliation doesn't always have to be a case, because I'm pretty sure I have learned about this because of people talking about celebrities and their obsessions with them, and how, you know, you were just completely, utterly obsessed with this person and everything about them, and just, it gives you that dopamine state of euphoria. I don't know, but I've definitely struggled with this in the past, and it's okay to just have a little bit of crazy in you, a little bit of obsessive thoughts. But I'm just going to talk a little bit more about Limerence to you. I'm just going to read the notes I've got in front of me and talk a little bit about them. So limerence can be linked to childhood experiences such as early childhood neglect or trauma, can lead to a deep-rooted need for validation that may manifest into limerence in adulthood. And I think this is just, it's to do with the things that you've been through, that you feel the need to be obsessive, or you feel like you deserve something that is unattainable, so you are always striving for something that is unattainable. And this is kind of something I've realised about myself, is that I tend to go for people that are unattainable, because I think I'm actually quite scared of commitment because of the things that I've been through. And I always seem to go for the ones that don't really want something with me, like the avoidant attachment style. And I think that is definitely due to my trauma and the way that I was raised. But that kind of links onto the next point that I wrote down, which is attachment styles. So insecure attachment styles, including anxious or avoidant ones, can increase vulnerability to, and I would say I have quite a anxious attachment style, and that obviously matched with an avoidant one, it definitely does make me more vulnerable to this limerence of, I'm obsessed with this person but they actually don't really care about me. And yeah, I think that's just how it be sometimes. And yeah, obviously you form your attachment styles from a young age, which yeah, is really interesting to know about and learn about, and yeah, just think about really. But stress and anxiety, so limerence often arises during periods of high stress, depression or anxiety, or even OCD-like tendencies. So if you, say, struggle with self-esteem or you struggle with obsessive thoughts already, then limerence is something that you're more subject to, because when you're constantly thinking about somebody, then you're romanticizing and you're coming up with like this fake version of them in your head, and that is obviously linked to like the OCD like tendencies as well, because the whole thing with OCD is like the repeated actions, the repeated thoughts, and if you don't do those certain things, then you'll think that it will have some kind of effect on your life. So yeah, that is just something to note about and what I wanted to talk about, because as a girly who is an anxious attachment and does struggle with romanticizing or some kind of like limerence, definitely wanted to talk about that in today's podcast. But the next topic that I'm going to talk about is the talking stage and the question of what even are we, and what is the talking stage. So the talking stage is the stage before officially dating, where you're getting to know each other, and this is just a really awkward but can be really fun stage to be in. So it can just be awkward because with different people, they obviously have different boundaries and different expectations. So something that worked with an ex-partner or somebody else that you used to talk to, that may be a boundary for them, or, you know, you just never know until things start progressing, I guess, and you start to get to know each other, which is obviously really awkward to work through sometimes, because you're not always going to get it right, and obviously as human beings we all just make mistakes. But yeah, in today's day and age, I feel like not all the time, but most of the time, the talking stage is kind of like a setback on commitment, because it's like, oh, we're just like in the talking stage, and that means that you kind of have a label and you're meant to be exclusively dating each other, but you're technically not together. So there's kind of like that grey line of what's acceptable, what's not, what's expected, and yeah, it can just get a little bit tricky sometimes. But I've experienced this quite a lot, like on dating apps, because I've seen a lot of other women experience this too, and I've just like spoken to people for like either days, weeks, months, and things are going really well. Like we're constantly messaging, we're saying good morning, night, like the whole shebang, and then suddenly out of nowhere they just switch when the question of what are we comes up, and they are obviously just scared of commitment and a bit of an avoidant. But it is very common nowadays for boys to just, or not boys, just people in general, to play the game until it actually comes down to the commitment. And I have had people on the dating apps like say to me like, I really want to marry you, and then 2 days later they've blocked me on everything, they don't really care about me, and that's that. But yeah, with dating apps it can just be so scary, and you really don't know a person until, I don't know if you'll ever know a person truly, like, because obviously life changes, things change, and yeah, I don't even know anymore. But I think, yeah, dating apps is a tricky one. But on the other side, the talking stage can be quite exhilarating. It's exciting, just meeting somebody and just really clicking and really getting along, and everything starts to fall into place until the question of what are comes up, and then that feeling of them telling you that they feel the same, or you bring them the same things that you feel for them. It just is like the most amazing feeling, and there is no feeling really like that. And especially when you actually cement that connection and relationship, it just can be so amazing. But now I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is, do we even know what we want? And I'm just gonna kind of look at my notes as I'm talking about this. But dating in 2025 isn't easy. Social media and the internet has overloaded us with expectations and options. The trends of expectations are ever changing, what the beauty standards are, etc. With being able to go online and see somebody who's got the perfect job, the perfect body, etc., it's difficult to not want to fit in societally. It sets unrealistic goals that not even the biggest celebrity or the biggest influencer could even reach. Leading on from this, the dating app culture has completely switched up the whole dating game. It's got its benefits, and I have heard some amazing love stories from dating apps, and people can find the love of their lives on there, and it works out. But that leads on to the question of, do we actually know what we want? And in my opinion, no, I don't think we do, because things are constantly changing and there's no set thing for anyone. And yeah, I think society has slightly been ruined because of the internet and social media, because of these unrealistic expectations. And I don't think we do know what we want, but maybe one day we will. Who knows? And next I'm gonna talk about, not my favourite topic, but a massive topic in all of our lives, and we've all faced it, let's be honest, and it's rejection. And I'm just gonna unpack a little bit about ghosting, closure, and rejection, like as a whole. And obviously rejection is never nice. It isn't easy. It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, or that thing is just different, or it could just make you feel a lot of negative emotions, obviously. And as you get older, rejection obviously happens more often, and you get a thicker skin to it, and you change your perspective of it, of this isn't me, it's everyone else, or you know, that kind of thing. And you have to be sure in yourself to be able to handle rejection a lot better. And ghosting is a horrible thing, but I know that a majority of people have done it, and you learn from your mistakes of not ghosting people and realizing that hurting other people's emotions, obviously you got to take these things into more consideration as you get older, because you become more aware of these things, and you realize that you have to kind of take more care with what you say and, you know, how you handle situations. But ghosting is when a person has seen or received your message, or received your call, or anything in that kind of form of communication, I don't even know, but they don't respond back. And this will usually last, in my opinion, for about a couple of months, until they realize their mistakes and they come running back. and they usually do this just to see if you still care, and that strokes their ego, and then they leave because they know that you still do. And that's why when somebody has ghosted you, it's definitely important to block a blocker because they clearly weren't right for you. But another thing that is a big topic is closure. And closure is such an unpredictable thing in my eyes, because even in the early stages of dating, but also even later on, is that closure is something which isn't always given. It can be a really useful thing to get when you're battling the feelings of rejection, because you could be made to feel like you're not good enough or that you aren't worth anything. And closure can sometimes like provide the peace of mind of knowing that you aren't the problem, or if you're having these thoughts of like, why did they do this, then at least you know the reason why. But usually I've had to give myself closure in the past, and that's usually because the people that I've dated haven't exactly been the most emotionally intelligent to give me that reassurance, but I feel like that has definitely given me a boost. Well, I'm going to have to cut this episode short because of low storage, and I definitely need to sort it out. But if you would like me to carry on the rest of this conversation, then let me know in the comments. And I've got loads more notes just on this topic, so if you want me to do a part 2 and to go into more of this, then make sure you let me know in the comment section below. But that is the end, unfortunately, to the 8th episode of Delusional Chaos. And if you like content just like this, then make sure that you remember that you can like, comment and subscribe. And until then, stay delusional, embrace the chaos, and I'll see you again for another episode. Bye.